They lit up the stage with fire, laughter, music, and vanished in a heartbeat. These weren't scenes from a movie. These were real performers whose final curtain call came without warning, mid-song, mid-joke, mid-dream. They fell, live before our eyes. What happens when the show never gets to end? Step into the haunting, heroic, and heart-wrenching final acts of stars who died doing what they loved, on stage. Christina Grimmie, the star who shined brightest before the darkness. She had that voice, the kind that made you stop, close your eyes, and feel. Christina Grimmie wasn't just a singer. She was a spark, rising from humble YouTube covers to national stardom. On The Voice, she wasn't a contestant. She was a revelation. Small girl, massive sound, and a heart too pure for the industry. June 10th, death, 2016, Orlando, Florida. Christina had just wrapped a concert filled with laughter, love, and electricity. Then she did what made fans love her even more. She stayed behind to greet them. No bodyguards, no distance. Just Christina, arms open, heart first. And then it happened. A man stepped forward for a hug. She smiled. He pulled out a gun and shot her, point blank. Her brother tackled the shooter, but it was too late. Christina was rushed to the hospital, where doctors fought for her life. But the damage was done. She died just hours after her show, at only 22. The world stopped. Shock rippled through fans, artists, and strangers alike. Why her? Why now? She had so much left to give. Christina didn't die on stage, but she died in the afterglow of love, generosity, and passion. She was still reaching out, still giving when the world gave her back tragedy. And yet, her voice lives on, stronger than ever. In every cover, every chorus, every heart she touched, Christina is still singing. Goodbye to Gravity, the band that burned with their own fire. They were on the edge of greatness, young, loud, fearless. Goodbye to Gravity, a Romanian metal band, had just dropped their explosive new album, Mantras of War. It was their night. October 30th, 2015. The stage at Collective nightclub in Bucharest was theirs. Fans packed the room, fists in the air, fire in their veins. And then, literal fire. A pyrotechnic cue. Sparks shot upward. The soundproofing foam above ignited. At first, no one panicked. The band kept playing. But within seconds, flames roared across the ceiling. Smoke choked the air. Lights died. Screams erupted. Doors were locked. The club turned into a coffin. 4 members of Goodbye to Gravity, Vlad Telea, Mihai Alexandru, Bogdan Inache, and Alex Pascu, never made it out alive. Dozens of fans perished. Hundreds were injured. Romania woke up in mourning and in rage. The fire sparked a revolution. Protests filled the streets. Citizens demanded accountability for corruption, lax safety, and indifference that cost lives. Goodbye to Gravity never asked to become martyrs. They just wanted to play their music. But their final show became a symbol of rebellion, of grief, of voices that burned too bright. They died as they lived, on stage, giving everything, and their legacy, like their sound, still echoes. Loud, urgent, unforgettable. Mitsuharu Misawa, the warrior who never rose again. In Japan, he wasn't just a wrestler, he was a myth in motion. Mitsuharu Misawa moved like poetry wrapped in pain, a titan of honor and grit. Every time he entered the ring, fans knew they weren't just watching a fight. They were witnessing a legend. June 13th, 2009. Hiroshima. A routine tag team match, just another night, or so it seemed. Midway through the bout, Misawa was lifted into a standard suplex. He'd taken it 1,000 times, but this time, it broke him. He hit the mat and didn't move. The crowd froze. His partner dropped to his knees, panic replacing performance. Medics stormed the ring. Live on TV, cheers turned to gasps. Misawa had suffered a catastrophic spinal cord injury. Despite CPR, oxygen, everything, they couldn't bring him back. He was 46. He died on the battlefield that made him a hero. There was no scripted farewell, no slow fade, just silence where a roar should have been. To fans, Misawa was courage made flesh. He didn't just perform. He endured, sacrificed, bled for the sport he loved. And in his final match, he gave it all, literally. He was a warrior to the end. And that ring, once his kingdom, became his grave. Papa Wemba, the king who took his final bow mid-song. He was more than a singer. He was a revolution in rhythm. Papa Wemba, the father of Congolese soukous, made music that moved nations. Dressed in high fashion, steeped in tradition, he turned every stage into a pulpit of pride and sound. His voice could lift the soul, his presence could ignite a crowd. April 24th, 2016, the Femua Music Festival in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. The night was alive. Beats thumped, fans danced, and Papa Wemba commanded the stage like royalty. And then he collapsed, mid-performance, in front of his band, his dancers, his people. 1 second he was soaring, the next, silence. For a moment, the audience thought it was drama, a theatrical pause. But this was no act. Medics rushed in, but within minutes, the news shattered the night. The legend was gone. He was 66. The footage spread like wildfire, disbelief trailing behind every view. How could the king fall, right at the height of his element? But maybe that's how kings go, not in fading twilight, but ablaze in their full glory. Papa Wemba didn't just sing. He celebrated African identity, reshaped global music, and gave his final breath doing what he was born to do. His last note wasn't an ending. It was a legacy. Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter's final dive. He wasn't just a wildlife expert. He was wildlife incarnate. Steve Irwin charged through jungles, stared down snakes, and danced with danger like it was a childhood friend. With his khakis, boundless energy, and signature crikey, he didn't just educate, he electrified. He made millions fall in love with the wild. September 4th, 2006. The Great Barrier Reef. Steve was filming Ocean's Deadliest, a documentary about marine predators. The ocean was calm, peaceful. Steve dove in, searching for beauty, not trouble, but trouble found him. Gliding over an 8-foot stingray, Steve was struck. The barb pierced his chest, directly through the heart. Cameras were rolling. He pulled the barb out himself. His crew dragged him onto the boat. CPR. Panic. But the blow was fatal. Steve Irwin was gone. He was 44. The footage was never released. It didn't need to be. The world felt the loss. Fans wept. Conservationists mourned. Even those who feared nature felt its pain. Steve didn't die from recklessness. He died in purpose. He died doing what he loved most, connecting with creatures, inspiring awe. He belonged to the wild, and it claimed him not with malice, but with mystery. His final breath wasn't a goodbye. It was a roar of legacy that still echoes across every jungle, reef, and beating heart he touched. Tiny Tim, the falsetto that fell silent mid-song. He was strange, whimsical, and unforgettable. Tiny Tim, with his trademark ukulele and eerie falsetto, became one of America's most eccentric musical icons. Best known for his haunting rendition of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, he blurred the line between novelty act and cult legend. Beneath the oddity, however, was a man who lived and loved through music, a performer whose greatest joy was simply to be on stage. November 30th, 1996, Minneapolis. Tiny Tim was booked to perform at a gala benefit at the Woman's Club. Despite a history of heart problems and a warning from doctors to slow down, he refused to cancel. Performing wasn't a job for him. It was his heartbeat, his lifeline. The evening began light and joyful. He smiled, greeted the audience, and launched into his signature song. The high-pitched melody of Tiptoe Through the Tulips filled the room. The crowd leaned in, enchanted by his signature warble and oddball charm. Then he stopped. Mid-song, Tiny Tim stumbled off stage. His wife, Miss Sue, rushed to his side. He collapsed into her arms, whispering his final words. "I'm sorry I couldn't finish." And just like that, he was gone. A heart attack claimed him moments later. He was 64. His death shocked fans around the world. Tributes poured in, not just from admirers of his music, but from fellow artists who respected his originality and defiance of convention. Tiny Tim never tried to be like anyone else. He dared to be exactly who he was. He didn't die in obscurity. He died doing what he loved, on stage, in the spotlight, mid-note. His final breath was part of a song. Tiny Tim didn't fade into silence. He sang into it, softly, strangely, beautifully, just like he always had. Karl Wallenda, the Skywalker who fell from the heavens. For Karl Wallenda, the sky wasn't a boundary. It was a playground. As the fearless patriarch of the flying Wallendas, he danced across wires stretched hundreds of feet above the ground with no nets, no safety harnesses, just balance, faith, and generations of daredevil DNA. He wasn't performing stunts. He was performing belief that humans could conquer fear with courage alone. March 22nd, in 1978, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Karl, 73 years old and still defying gravity, prepared for another breathtaking walk. The wire, strung between the twin towers of the Condado Plaza Hotel. The height, 121 feet. The stakes, life itself. Crowds gathered below. Cameras rolled. The wind whispered across the wire. Karl stepped out with the poise of a man who had done this 1,000 times. Every step was precise, every sway measured. Then, a gust. A sudden surge of wind caught him off balance. He tried to regain footing, arms out, knees bent. But this time, fate didn't grant him the miracle. He slipped. Gasps turned to screams as Karl Wallenda fell, live on television. The cameras captured everything, the fall, the silence, the shock. Moments later, it was confirmed. The legend had died. But Karl didn't fall in fear. He fell doing what he believed in, living on the edge, literally. To him, risk wasn't recklessness. It was freedom. He spent his life walking between earth and sky, and he left it the same way. His death stunned the world, but it didn't tarnish his legend. If anything, it solidified it. Today, every high-wire act owes something to Karl Wallenda, the man who showed that the bravest steps are the ones taken with nothing but air below. He didn't fall from grace. He soared until grace let go. Tommy Cooper, the magician who never got back up. He was chaos wrapped in charm, a towering figure in a red fez who could make an audience howl with laughter using little more than a failed magic trick. Tommy Cooper wasn't just a comedian. He was a one-man hurricane of misdirection, timing, and lovable disaster. His genius was in the mess, and people adored him for it. April 15th, 1984. London, a live TV broadcast. Tommy stepped onto the stage like always, commanding the spotlight with his mix of clumsy illusions and side-splitting gags. The audience roared. He stumbled, fumbled, performed brilliantly bad tricks that somehow worked by not working. Then, mid-act, he clutched his chest, stumbled backward. Laughter erupted. It looked like another gag, another perfectly timed pratfall. But this time, Tommy didn't get up. Seconds ticked by. Confusion spread. The curtain dropped. Backstage turned frantic. CPR, panic, ambulances. But it was too late. Tommy Cooper had suffered a massive heart attack, dying live in front of millions. He was 63. Some thought it was part of the show. Others sat in stunned silence. The truth landed like a gut punch. He died doing what he loved, making people laugh. And in the cruelest twist, his final collapse looked so much like a joke that nobody knew it was goodbye. Tommy's last trick wasn't sleight of hand. It was vanishing in plain sight. Kosta Titch, the beatmaker who collapsed in the spotlight. He moved like music lived inside him. Kosta Titch wasn't just a rapper. He was a storm of rhythm, dance, and fire. A visionary from South Africa, he fused amapiano, hip-hop, and choreography into something electric. Every performance was high-octane. Every move hit like a spark. Kosta didn't just entertain. He ignited stages. March 11th, 2023, Ultra Music Festival, Johannesburg. The night sky pulsed with light. The crowd chanted his name, thousands deep. Kosta hit the stage like a man on a mission, fast, fierce, untouchable. His flow was razor-sharp, his footwork flawless. Then, mid-set, it happened. He stumbled. For a second, fans thought it was part of the routine. Kosta was known to push his body beyond its limits. He stood back up, tried to continue, then collapsed again. This time, he didn't rise. Paramedics rushed the stage. Music cut. The crowd fell into a stunned silence. Despite frantic efforts, Kosta Titch was pronounced dead shortly after. He was just 28. Speculation followed. Was it exhaustion? A seizure? Something deeper? The official cause remained unclear, but the heartbreak was undeniable. A young artist, just reaching his prime, lost in a blink. Footage from that night still circulates. His energy, his joy, that fire in his eyes. He wasn't going through the motions. He was alive in every second. Kosta didn't die quietly. He died mid-verse, mid-dream, mid-impact. He didn't fade. He blazed out, a rising star, forever frozen in motion. Pedro Henrique, the guitarist who played until his heart gave out. He didn't just strum chords. He bled through them. Pedro Henrique, one of Brazil's most passionate guitarists, had a way of playing that made time stop. His guitar was an extension of his soul, and every stage he stepped on became a battlefield of emotion. His music wasn't about flash or fame. It was about feeling, raw, unfiltered, real. March 12th, 2023, São Paulo. The night was electric. A music festival alive with energy, fans packed in tight, pulsing with rhythm. Pedro walked on stage, guitar in hand, fire in his veins. From the very first note, he had them. Each chord hit like a heartbeat. He wasn't performing, he was becoming the music. Then suddenly, he staggered. Just a second. A brief wobble, the kind of moment some might take for theatrics. He smiled, tried to continue, but his body gave out. Pedro collapsed in front of hundreds of fans and fellow musicians. The stage went from roar to chaos. Medics rushed in, CPR, oxygen, desperation, but it was already too late. Pedro Henrique had suffered a fatal heart attack. He was only 39. His death sent shockwaves through the Brazilian music community. It wasn't just the loss of a gifted guitarist. It was the silencing of a soul who lived through every string he touched. Footage from that night shows it all: the sweat, the focus, the love in every note. There was no farewell, no encore, just pure devotion until the very last breath. Pedro didn't slip into silence. He burned out mid-song, mid-heartbeat, mid-legacy. Valencia Prime, the queen who danced until the end. She was bold, radiant, and unstoppable, a force of joy wrapped in glitter and grace. Valencia Prime wasn't just a drag performer, she was a movement. Known as Philadelphia's plus-size dancing diva, she lit up every room with unapologetic confidence, vibrant energy, and a smile that made strangers feel like friends. To watch her on stage was to witness power in motion. September 12th, 2022, Taboo Lounge and Sports Bar, Philadelphia. It was prime time, her signature showcase. The room was electric, The music pulsing, the spotlight hers. Valencia owned the stage like a queen in her palace, delivering every move with fire and flair. Then, mid-performance, everything stopped. She collapsed without warning. Gasps cut through the music. Staff rushed to her side. Paramedics arrived in moments, but the glow that had once burned so brightly was already dimming. Valencia Prime was pronounced dead shortly after, at just 25 years old. The cause, atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. A natural death, but far too soon for a star who had only begun to rise. Her passing rippled across the LGBTQ+ community and beyond. Friends, fans, and fellow performers flooded social media with heartbreak and tribute. Valencia didn't just entertain, she empowered. She shattered norms, challenged beauty standards, and made stages safer for those who'd never seen themselves celebrated before. She left behind more than glitter and glamour. She left behind a legacy of love, light, and fierce authenticity. Valencia Prime didn't bow out. She blazed out mid-dance, mid-dream, mid-revolution. KK, the voice that stopped mid-song. He didn't just sing, he moved people. Krishna Kumar Kunath, known to millions simply as KK, had a voice that could heal a broken heart, awaken old memories, or make you fall in love all over again. In India's music scene, his songs weren't just hits. They were emotional time machines. Rainy nights, first loves, quiet heartbreaks, KK's voice lived in them all. May 31st, Saint, 2022, Kolkata. KK was performing at the iconic Nazrul Mancha Auditorium. The show was sold out. The crowd was electric, and so was he. Song after song, he gave his all, smiling, sweating, raising the roof with every note. But something wasn't right. Backstage, he complained of fatigue, the heat, the intensity. It was catching up. He returned to his hotel after the concert looking exhausted. Minutes later, he collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. KK had suffered a cardiac arrest. He was only 53. The news broke like thunder. A nation mourned. How could a voice so full of life be gone just hours after lighting up a stage? His death didn't just silence a singer, it silenced a part of India's emotional landscape. In footage from his final concert, he's still smiling, still hitting every note, still waving to fans like nothing could stop him. And maybe that's what makes it so haunting. KK didn't leave quietly. He sang to the very end. His final performance wasn't just a show. It was a goodbye none of us saw coming. Colonel Bruce Hampton, the maestro who bowed out mid-jam. He wasn't just a musician. He was a cosmic conductor of chaos and soul. Colonel Bruce Hampton, the eccentric godfather of Southern jam rock, blurred every line. Between genius and madness, structure and improvisation, music and mysticism. He mentored generations of musicians, not by teaching notes, but by teaching freedom. May Saint, 2017, Fox Theater, Atlanta. It was his 70th birthday, and the stage was packed with legends, friends, protégés, and bandmates all there to honor him. It wasn't a concert. It was a celebration, a living tribute, a jam session of love. And Bruce was right there, smiling wide, lost in the groove. Then came the final song, Turn On Your Love Light. The energy peaked. Bruce stepped forward during the climax, leaned on a speaker, and collapsed. No one reacted at first. It had to be a bit. Classic Bruce, the master of the unexpected, always pushing the absurd. But he didn't get back up. Slowly, realization set in. The music faded. A chill swept the theater. Bruce Hampton was rushed to the hospital but never regained consciousness. He died that night. On his birthday, on his stage, surrounded by the very souls he had shaped with sound. His death was shocking, tragic, and somehow poetic. The Colonel went out exactly as he lived. Mid-jam, mid-chaos, mid-genius. Not with a goodbye, but with a final, thunderous note that still vibrates in the hearts of everyone who ever played with him or heard him play. Dick Shawn, the comedian whose final punchline was real. He was wild, unpredictable, and brilliantly bizarre. Dick Shawn didn't just perform comedy, he detonated it. With a mind like a firecracker and a stage presence that bordered on surreal, he made audiences laugh, squirm, and wonder what the hell was coming next. From Broadway to Hollywood, the producers, he was a master of absurdity. Nothing about Dick was ordinary. April 17th, 1987, University of California, San Diego, a packed theater. Dick took the stage for a one-man show, riffing on politics, life, and nuclear war. Pure, strange brilliance. Then came the moment, with theatrical flair, he declared, "If elected, I will not lay down on the job." And then he laid down, flat on the stage, silent. The crowd erupted in laughter. Classic Dick. Surely this was another perfectly timed gag. Minutes passed. The laughter faded. Unease grew. He didn't move. Finally, stagehands rushed in. Paramedics followed. CPR, defibrillators, chaos. But it was too late. Dick Shawn had suffered a massive heart attack, dying mid-performance, mid-joke. He was 63. The audience sat stunned. Was it real? Was this the punchline? The answer came slowly, heartbreakingly, yes. And in the most Dick Shawn way imaginable, he had blurred the line one last time between act and accident, between show and tragedy. He died center stage, in character, with the audience laughing. For a man who lived to surprise, provoke, and defy expectations, that was the final punchline. Barbara Weldon's, the voice, silenced by a spark. She sang barefoot, as if trying to feel the earth's pulse in every note. Barbara Weldon's wasn't just a rising star in France. She was a storm of raw poetry and haunting beauty. Her voice could shatter hearts or lift them into the sky. Critics called her electric. Audiences called her unforgettable. On stage, she was fearless, delicate, and defiant all at once. July 19th, 2017. A quiet evening at the Léo Ferré Festival in Gourdon, France. The venue, a small church. The setting, intimate, sacred. Barbara stepped into the spotlight, barefoot, her voice weaving through the air like silk laced with fire. The audience leaned in, breath held. Then it happened. Mid-song, she collapsed. At first, confusion. Was this part of the performance? A dramatic gesture? But as the seconds ticked and she remained still, panic set in. People rushed to her side, but it was too late. Barbara Weldon's had suffered a fatal electric shock, believed to be caused by faulty stage equipment. She died instantly. She was only 35. The music world reeled. She had just released her debut album, her name beginning to echo beyond France. She was on the cusp. And then, like a light bulb popping in the dark, she was gone. But Barbara left behind more than silence. She left a reminder that true artistry doesn't need decades. Sometimes it only takes one voice, one song, one moment of truth. She gave us that, and the silence that followed still sings her name. Sib Hashian, the drummer whose beat stopped mid-song. He was the heartbeat behind anthems. With his signature afro and thunderous groove, Sib Hashian was more than Boston's drummer. He was the pulse that powered stadiums. His rhythms weren't just background. They led the charge, fueling classics like More Than a Feeling and Peace of Mind with power and precision. March 22nd and 2017, aboard the Legends of Rock cruise. The sun dipped low over open waters as fans packed the deck for a nostalgia-fueled rock show. Sib, ever the professional, took his place behind the drum kit, steady, cool, unshakable. The band launched into their set. The music soared, the crowd roared, then suddenly, silence. In the middle of a song, Sib collapsed. One moment he was driving the rhythm forward, the next he was still. Bandmates rushed to his side. Panic spread through the crowd. CPR was performed. Hopes rose and fell with every beat of the medic's hands. But it wasn't enough. Sib Hashian was gone. He was 67. Later, it was revealed he had been battling kidney cancer, though few knew how far it had progressed. And yet there he was, giving his all until the very end. No complaints, no retreat. Just music and the will to play it. His death shocked fans worldwide, but in a way it was poetic. Sib didn't fade out slowly. He exited mid-tempo, mid-performance, mid-legacy. His rhythm didn't end, it echoes still wherever hearts beat to the sound of rock. Juan Jumalon, the voice silenced live on air. He wasn't just a broadcaster. He was a friend to thousands. Known by his radio name Johnny Walker, Juan Jumalon filled the airwaves across the Philippines with laughter, warmth, and music. His show on 94.7 Gold Mega Calamba FM was a daily dose of joy. Non-political, non-controversial, just comfort in a chaotic world. November 5th, 2023. Misamis Occidental. It was a typical morning. Coffee brewed, microphone on, Facebook Live rolling. Juan was broadcasting from his home studio, his signature smile, his familiar voice filling homes across the region. Then came the knock. Two men entered, posing as visitors with a lost and found announcement. One held a staff member at gunpoint. The other stormed into the studio. In a heartbeat, horror unfolded, live. Juan was shot twice while broadcasting. The camera kept streaming. Viewers watched in disbelief as a beloved voice was silenced in real time. The attackers fled on a motorcycle, ripping a necklace from his body as they escaped. Juan was pronounced dead on the scene. He was 57. He wasn't an activist. He wasn't political. He was just a man doing what he loved, spreading joy. And that's what made it all the more devastating. His murder sent shockwaves through the media community, raising urgent conversations about safety, violence, and the fragility of everyday life. But even as his mic fell silent, Juan's laughter, his music, his presence, they echo still. Because voices like his don't die. They reverberate. They didn't just perform. They breathed on stage. Every lyric, every step, every joke, every note was a piece of their soul laid bare for us to witness. And in a world obsessed with control, with planning, with perfect endings, these artists left us the most unpredictable and human kind of goodbye. They didn't fade away behind closed doors. They left us in the spotlight, mid-performance, with hearts still pounding and lights still burning. It's heartbreaking, it's unfair, but it's also deeply poetic. Because what greater truth can a performer leave behind than this? They meant every second. They didn't save anything for later. They gave it all, on that stage, in that moment. And even in their final breath, they told a story no script could write. We remember them not just for how they died, but for how fiercely they lived in their art. Their final acts weren't accidents. They were sacrifices. Unplanned, yes, but unforgettable. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful true stories that stay with you long after the lights go down.